Hey, collective. Fair warning, the construction by my house in LA is so bad that they're probably just gonna have to be another character in this video, but it's not gonna stop me from talking to you about the gender pay gap. So, it's impossible to talk about income inequity without mentioning gender-based discrimination. But no matter how many polls are taken, many people won't even acknowledge the possibility of the pay gap between men and women. Well, this could partially be because the issue isn't always so simple. There are many factors that contribute to this dance around a law in place that is supposed to protect us from this. So, let's break it down. This is the gender pay gap. As of March of 2021, according to the National Partnership for Women and Families, women in the United States are paid just 82 cents for every dollar paid to men. But here's an even more scary statistic. Over the course of a woman's lifetime, she will on average make 42 cents to her male coworker's dollar. So how in the hell does this happen when we clearly have a law in place to prevent this? Let's look at that law. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 protects men and women from sex-based wage discrimination in the payment of wages or benefits who perform substantially equal work in the same establishment. That is a run-on sentence. But how do they define equal? Two jobs do not have to be exactly the same to be considered equal for the purposes of the Equal Pay Act. In general, for two jobs to be considered substantially equal, they should require fundamentally equal levels of effort, responsibility, and skill, and should be performed under similar conditions. But here's the catch. Employers can get away with paying one employee more by tacking on a few extra duties to one person's job. Under the law, it's legal to pay more for extra duties. However, some courts have noticed and penalized employers who consistently tack nominal extra duties onto jobs held by men and not women. So, basically, women are less likely to receive extra responsibilities that would lead to higher wages and potentially, more importantly, promotions. But why might that be? A recent ICEDR global study found that company leaders believe that women around the age of 30 leave the workforce because they can't find the proper work-life balance or they're planning to have children. Are all women planning to have children? Are women the only ones planning to have children? I mean, that's quite the assumption. It might have made more sense just to ask her about her future plans, but I digress. The fact is, when the same study asked women why they're actually leaving, it found that the reason had less to do with babies or balance and more to do with making bank. I found a job elsewhere and it pays more was the top response. Imagine that. Given by some 65% of respondents. This is an important disconnect to highlight. If your boss believes you will leave the workforce in the foreseeable future to have kids, chances are he or she will pass over you for promotions and additional responsibilities and instead invest in the men who they think will be around for the long haul. And that translates into less money over the course of a career. Interestingly enough, men with kids make on average more money than men without kids, regardless of age. We'll let you do the math on that one. Which brings us to our next problem around this issue, asking for more money. Women often have a harder time negotiating for more money from the start. Part of this is due to the need to not want to feel pushy or bossy, or in my case, the angry black woman, or insert more aggressive language. But the issue isn't just down to your current salary, but your potential for salary negotiations in the future, as well as your Social Security after retirement. According to a 2011 study from Georgetown Center on Education and the Workforce, college-educated women working full-time earn more than $500,000 less than their male peers over the course of a lifetime. That 3% adds up fast. Trust. But this issue isn't just the gap between men and women dominating careers, but in careers heavily dominated by one or the other. I shouldn't even have to explain how male-dominated career paths can cause gender biases in relation to income, but how about female-dominated career paths? Fields dominated by women, such as nursing, social work, and teaching, are typically less compensated than fields that are predominantly male, like finance. This has less to do with the skills involved and more to do with gendered preconceptions of what kind of work is valuable. If y'all don't think teachers' work or nurses' work after the year we've had is valuable, check yourself. To put this further into perspective, janitors on average make 22% more than housekeepers, according to the New York Times. Just some food for thought. A 2011 study from Georgetown Center on Education and the Workforce found that men with some college experience but no degree earn about the same as women with a bachelor's degree. And that women have to have a PhD to make as much as a man with a BA. Look, there are so many topics we haven't been able to cover under this umbrella. How this affects women of color differently, transgender individuals, immigrant women, etc. However, the solution to these problems on a Venn diagram has a pretty strong overlap. We need to break down traditional family structures. There is no shame or ill will toward individuals who want and maybe have always wanted a more traditional family structure with traditional family values. However, when this model is blanketed over all of society, it creates some very strong platforms for inequality. As a matter of fact, a majority of the states with the highest gender pay gap are the states that value more traditional family values. So, where would be a good place to start this societal deconstruction? Paternity leave? That's paternity with a P. Maternity leave, with an M, is obviously very important and should be a very valued time off in the workforce. However, if we're only fighting for maternity and not paternity, we are further pushing these stigmas about women being unreliable in the workforce if they ever want children. And finally, we have to be able to talk about our salaries. Legally, we can. The National Labor Relations Act makes that very legal for us. However, in some company cultures, it doesn't make it very possible, as employers discourage discussions on salary at work. But what you need to remember is that the law is behind you. You have a federal right to do so. And if we don't create a culture that allows for these discussions, many individuals might never be aware of the discrimination they surround themselves with and potentially aid to every single day. So tell us what you think about this. Tell us if you have any questions, and let us know if you think paternity leave as well as maternity leave should be legally mandated.